Scarcity is not a condition of the world, it is a condition of the mind. It is a hypnotic trance into which millions live and die without ever questioning its reality. From the earliest days, most of us are fed a steady diet of limitation. Money is hard to come by. You have to fight for every penny. There's never enough to go around. These phrases, repeated by parents, teachers, media, and peers, become deeply embedded in the subconscious, where they operate like invisible chains, binding a person to a narrow corridor of experience. The tragedy is that this belief in scarcity has nothing to do with the actual abundance of the universe. It is a false picture impressed upon the inner mind, and because the subconscious must always reproduce the patterns given to it, the outer life becomes a mirror of this lack. Picture yourself standing knee-deep in a flowing river, the current swift and clear, carrying more water than you could ever exhaust. Yet in your hand you hold an empty cup and you cry out for someone to bring you a drink. This is how scarcity operates. You are surrounded by the supply of infinite mind, but because your inner eyes are veiled, you do not reach down and drink. Instead, you repeat the same old story. There's not enough for me. This story becomes the law of your life, not because it is true, but because the subconscious accepts it as true and shapes every financial outcome to match it. The scriptures remind us, the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. Fullness means nothing missing, nothing lacking, an overflowing supply. Yet if the subconscious is programmed with the lives shortage, you can stand in the midst of God's fullness and still experience emptiness. The problem is not in the divine giver, it is in the mental receiver. When your inner receiver is set to low capacity, the river of wealth cannot pour through even though it flows all around you. The illusion of scarcity keeps you fixated on competition and comparison. You measure your worth against another's gain, you fear their abundance will somehow diminish yours, and you live in a state of chronic tension, bracing against the future as though life were a battleground. This mindset blinds you to opportunities, closes the intuitive channels through which inspired ideas arrive, and keeps you chained to work that feels like labor rather than joyous creation. The moment you begin to see scarcity for what it is, a mental hallucination, you take the first step toward freedom. You realize that there is no cosmic law of not enough, only a law of mind that faithfully reproduces whatever seed of belief you plant. And when you are ready to plant a new seed, a seed of abundance, the subconscious will obey that too. The river will still be there waiting for you to cup your hands and drink deeply. Affirmation to carry forward. I stand in the river of God's abundance, and I open my mind to receive without limit. For generations we have been told that the surest path to wealth is to work harder, push longer, and strive with greater force than those around us. We have been taught to measure the value of our labor in sweat, hours, and exhaustion, as though the universe were a stern taskmaster doling out coins only to the most worn and weary. And while hard work has its place, discipline, excellence, and effort are noble qualities, it is not the root from which true, lasting wealth springs. There are countless men and women who labor from dawn until long past dusk, pouring out every drop of energy they possess, and yet they remain no closer to freedom, no nearer to abundance than they were years ago. Their lives are a testament to a hidden truth. Without the right inner blueprint, outer labor alone cannot produce lasting prosperity. The reason for this is spiritual law. As the prophet declared, "It is not by might, nor by power, but by my Spirit, saith the Lord of hosts." This is not a dismissal of human effort, but a revelation of the real source of increase. The might and power spoken of here refer to the exertion of the outer self, the conscious mind's attempt to force results by sheer will. But spirit, the divine intelligence that governs all creation, operates from within through the medium of the subconscious mind. And when the subconscious holds a pattern of lack, no amount of outer work can override it. The seed of poverty planted within will bring forth its own kind, regardless of the soil in which it is sown. Consider the builder who follows a flawed blueprint. No matter how skillfully he handles his tools, no matter how long he labors, the finished structure will be a reflection of the error in the plan. The subconscious mind is that blueprint. It shapes the limits of your wealth before a single coin changes hands. When it is impressed with a clear, unwavering image of abundance, the outer results flow naturally, often with far less toil than you imagined necessary. Opportunities appear, ideas emerge, helpers arrivano because you have forced them into being, but because the inner pattern has magnetized them into your experience. This is why some seem to succeed effortlessly, while others struggle endlessly under the same conditions. The effortless achievers may still work, but their work is guided, inspired, and multiplied by an inner alignment with wealth. They are not fighting the current, they are moving with it. In contrast, the one who works without inner alignment is like a rower straining against the tide, burning energy simply to stay in place. The invitation before you is to stop rowing against the current of your own subconscious programming. You do not need to abandon work, you need to align it with the inner law that governs all increase. When you do, your labor becomes joyful, creative, and infinitely more productive. The 3 spiritual words you are about to learn will act as the switch that changes your inner current so that the work you choose to do flows in harmony with the unseen forces already moving to bless you. Affirmation to carry forward. It is not by might nor by power, but by spirit that my wealth appears, and my work is guided by divine law. Before divine wealth can pour into your life, you must first identify and remove the hidden barriers that block its flow, what I call wealth blockers. These are not obstacles in the outer world, though they may appear to manifest there. They are patterns of thought and feeling lodged deep in the subconscious, quietly shaping your financial reality day after day. Left unexamined, these patterns can nullify even the most inspired affirmations and the most disciplined action. They are like invisible dams across the river of supply, and until they are dissolved, you will experience wealth as a trickle rather than the full, rushing current that is your divine birthright. The first and perhaps most common of these blockers is fear of success. Though it may seem strange, many people carry an unconscious dread of what abundance might bring. They imagine that wealth will alienate them from loved ones, attract envy or resentment, or place on them responsibilities they feel unprepared to meet. This fear creates a silent push-pull within. Consciously, they reach for more, but unconsciously, they recoil from it. The subconscious, always striving to maintain inner harmony, resolves the conflict by keeping them in a state of near enough, but not quite where desires are never fully realized. And opportunities somehow slip away at the last moment. The second great blocker is guilt about money. This often takes root in childhood, in households or religious environments where wealth was spoken of as corrupting, selfish, or spiritually inferior to poverty. Such conditioning teaches the subconscious that having more than others is morally wrong, and because the subconscious always acts to protect what it believes is right, it will sabotage any path toward greater abundance. The individual may find themselves giving away windfalls, undercharging for their work, or accidentally making choices that lead to lose anything, to remain in alignment with the inherited belief that wealth is dangerous or unworthy. A third, deeply ingrained blocker is inherited poverty beliefs. These are the generational patterns passed down like heirlooms, not in the form of tangible assets, but in the stories told around kitchen tables. We're just not the kind of people who get ahead. People like us have to work twice as hard for half as much. Life is a constant struggle. Such beliefs are so normalized that they become part of one's identity, as fixed in the mind as one's name. And because identity is the most powerful driver of subconscious behavior, these poverty beliefs can persist for decades unless consciously uprooted and replaced. Each of these blockers operates on the same principle. The subconscious accepts them as truth and then arranges your circumstances to match. And here is the key. These patterns are not personal failings. They are simply outdated mental programs. The moment you see them for what they are, you can begin to change them. Awareness is the first crack in the dam, and into that crack can flow the light of a new idea, a new truth, a new decree. The 3 spiritual words you will soon learn are designed to bypass these blockers entirely. They do not wrestle with the fear, guilt, or inherited belief, they overwrite them with a higher command, one that resonates so strongly with the truth of your being that the old patterns lose their grip without a fight. When you begin speaking them with conviction, you will feel the shift not in some distant future, but here and now as the river of supply begins to rise and flow more freely than you have ever known. Affirmation to carry forward. Every false belief about wealth is dissolved now, and my mind is open to receive the fullness of divine supply. Let me illustrate the subtlety and the power of these hidden wealth blockers with a story that could easily be your own. Several years ago, I spoke with a man named Daniel, a capable, intelligent entrepreneur whose business had all the makings of success. He had a loyal customer base, a quality product, and a work ethic that would put most to shame. Yet month after month, he found himself just breaking even, or worse, falling short. Opportunities seemed to appear, but at the final moment, deals would collapse, suppliers would back out, or unexpected expenses would devour the profits. From the outside, it looked like a streak of bad luck. From the inside, Daniel felt as though some invisible force was holding him in place. When we sat down to examine his situation, I asked him to speak honestly about how he felt toward wealth and success, not what he thought he should say, but the truth that rose up from within. At first, he spoke the usual affirmations. I want to be wealthy. I deserve success. But then, after a pause, he admitted something he had never said aloud. I'm afraid that if I make too much, my friends will treat me differently. Maybe they'll resent me. I've seen it happen to others. There it was, the unspoken fear of success, quietly canceling out his conscious desire. Once that fear had a name, we traced it back to its origin. In his teens, Daniel had watched his father's closest friend, a man of modest means, suddenly inherit a fortune. Within a year, that man's old circle of friends had drifted away, muttering behind his back, and the man himself became withdrawn and guarded. The young Daniel had absorbed the unspoken lesson. Wealth is dangerous because it separates you from the people you love. Without realizing it, he had carried this belief into adulthood, and his subconscious had faithfully protected him from that imagined danger by ensuring his income stayed within safe limits. I explained to Daniel that his subconscious was not his enemy, it was his servant, carrying out what it believed to be his true wish. The task was not to fight against it, but to give it a new, higher instruction, one that affirmed both abundance and connection. This is where the three spiritual words come into play. By repeating them daily with conviction, Daniel began to overwrite the old belief. The words acted like a master key, unlocking the vault of his subconscious and reprogramming it to see wealth not as a wedge between himself and others, but as a channel for greater generosity, influence, and shared joy. Within weeks, the results were unmistakable. A contract he had been pursuing for months suddenly went through without a hitch. An investor approached him with an offer that aligned perfectly with his vision. His monthly revenue doubled, then tripled, not because he had drastically changed his business model, but because the invisible blockade within had been removed. The river of supply that had been dammed up for years was finally flowing unhindered. Daniel's story is a reminder that the walls holding back your own abundance may be built from fears and beliefs you do not even consciously remember forming. But the moment those walls are breached, whether through insight, release, or the application of a higher spiritual truth, the flow is restored. And when we move into the practice of the three spiritual words, you will see how simply and powerfully this restoration can occur, even in cases where years of effort have yielded no lasting result. Affirmation to carry forward. I release every hidden fear about wealth, and I open the vault of my subconscious to the free flow of divine abundance. Before you take hold of the three spiritual words and set them to work in your life, you must prepare the inner ground upon which they will be planted. This is not a mere formality. It is the essential clearing away of the weeds, stones, and hardened soil that could otherwise choke the seed before it has a chance to take root. In spiritual terms, this means releasing the residue of past disappointments, clearing away emotional clutter, and creating a receptive state of mind in which the words can sink deep into the subconscious without resistance. If you attempt to plant them into a mind still tangled with yesterday's fears and grievances, they will compete for space and energy with those old growths, and the harvest will be delayed or diminished. Think of a master gardener preparing a plot of land. Before a single seed is sown, the gardener bends low, removing debris left from last season, turning the soil so that fresh air and sunlight can penetrate, and enriching it with nutrients that will sustain the young plants. This is exactly what you are to do with your inner garden. The debris in this case is the mental replay of past financial struggles, the self-criticism over mistakes, the resentments toward others who seem to have more, and the habit of scanning the horizon for lack instead of abundance. Each of these must be gently lifted out and discarded, for they do not belong in the fertile ground where your new wealth consciousness will grow. One of the simplest and most effective ways to prepare this ground is through a short, intentional release practice. Each evening before bed, sit in a quiet place with a notebook or a single sheet of paper. At the top of the page, write the words, "I release this now." Then, without censoring yourself, list every worry, every frustration, every lingering doubt about money, success, or your ability to receive. Let the pen move freely. You are not crafting a statement for anyone else's eyes but your own. When the list feels complete, read it aloud once, with the clear intention that these thoughts are no longer yours to carry. Then, tear the paper into small pieces, or burn it safely, watching as the symbols of your former burdens dissolve into nothing. This physical act impresses upon the subconscious that a genuine clearing has taken place. In the morning, when your mind is fresh and unburdened from sleep, spend a few minutes affirming your readiness to receive. You might say, "My mind is open, my heart is ready, and my life is a fertile field for divine ideas." This morning declaration acts like the gardener's turning of the soil, keeping it soft, open, and ready for the planting of the 3 spiritual words when the moment comes. By pairing the nightly release with the morning opening, you create a rhythmic cycle of clearing and receiving that keeps your inner atmosphere hospitable to the growth of new patterns. When the inner ground is prepared in this way, you will find that the 3 words take root more quickly and more deeply. You will sense, almost from the first repetition, that something within you is saying, "Yes, this belongs here." And that internal yes is the signal that the subconscious has accepted the seed and that the law of growth has already begun its invisible work. Affirmation to carry forward. I clear the soil of my mind each night, and each morning I welcome the seeds of divine abundance. The law of abundance is not a fanciful notion, nor is it a promise reserved for a select few. It is the fundamental order of creation. Everything in the universe, from the galaxies wheeling silently through space to the cells renewing themselves in your body, operates on the principle of overflow. Look at the trees in spring. They do not produce a single blossom and call it enough. They clothe themselves in thousands of blooms, each containing the potential for countless seeds. The ocean does not deliver a measured ration of waves to the shore. It rolls in ceaselessly, never depleting itself. The sun does not ration its light. It pours it forth without discrimination, shining on the just and the unjust alike. This is the nature of the divine. It gives, and gives, and gives again, without loss, without effort, without limit. When the psalmist wrote, "The earth is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof," he was not speaking in metaphor, but in truth. Fullness means that nothing is missing, nothing is lacking, nothing is withheld. The fullness thereof is the inexhaustible supply of ideas, opportunities, resources, and channels through which your needs and desires can be met. To live in lack, therefore, is not to live in alignment with the truth of God's creation. It is to live under the spell of a false belief that has been impressed upon the subconscious and is faithfully outpicturing itself in your circumstances. Abundance is not created by your effort. It already exists in the invisible realm, awaiting your recognition and acceptance. The law of abundance states that you can receive only what you are prepared to receive. If your inner receptacle is small, if your subconscious has been programmed to expect little, The outflow from the infinite reservoir will match that expectation. But enlarge your inner capacity through new beliefs, through confident declarations, through the steady repetition of spiritual truth, and the flow will increase accordingly. You must come to see yourself not as a beggar at the gates of heaven, pleading for a morsel, but as a rightful heir moving confidently through the halls of your inheritance. The Father's good pleasure is to give you the kingdom not in fragments, not in barely enough, but in the fullness of its riches. The only requirement is that you accept it. And acceptance is an inner act, not an outer one. When your subconscious accepts abundance as the normal state of your life, the outer channels through which it comes will open naturally. This is why the 3 spiritual words you will soon learn are so powerful. They are not requests, they are acknowledgments. They do not plead with the universe to do something it has not yet done. They align you with what has been true all along. They open the inner gates, allowing the flood to pour through. And because the law of abundance is impartial, it must respond to the dominant belief impressed upon it. The moment you impress the truth of abundance upon your inner mind, the law begins to bring that truth into visible form. Affirmation to carry forward. The fullness of the earth is mine to receive, and I live in the overflow of God's inexhaustible supply. The law of the Word is one of the oldest and most enduring spiritual truths, yet it is often the most overlooked in the pursuit of wealth. Scripture tells us plainly, death and life are in the power of the tongue, and they that love it shall eat the fruit thereof. This is not poetic ornament. It is a direct statement of spiritual law. The words you speak, whether aloud or in the silent chambers of your mind, are not idle sounds. They are vibrational commands that the subconscious accepts as blueprints. Once received, those blueprints are built into the structure of your outer life with unfailing precision. Every word carries within it a seed of creation. The moment it leaves your lips or rises in your inner dialogue, it begins to take root in the fertile soil of your subconscious. And because the subconscious cannot distinguish between what is spoken as a joke, as a complaint, or as a serious decree, every word is treated as instruction. If you constantly affirm lack, I can't afford that. Money never sticks around. People like me just don't get ahead. You are planting weeds in your inner garden, and they will grow as surely as the roses you long for. In the ancient Hebrew and early Christian understanding, the Word was not merely speech, it was the active force of God in motion, the logos, the creative principle through which all things were made. The Word became flesh, means that what is declared in spirit, through thought and speech, must inevitably take form in the material world. When you speak words charged with faith, gratitude, and certainty, you are activating this same creative force, setting in motion a chain of events that will bring your declaration into tangible being. The danger lies in speaking without awareness. Many people cancel the effects of their affirmations by allowing careless words to dominate their day. They may begin the morning declaring abundance, but by midday they are speaking of bills, debts, and economic downturns with the same fervor they should reserve for their spiritual truths. The subconscious does not sort these into real and unreal. It simply accepts the dominant impression, which is almost always the one most charged with emotion. This is why casual worry, spoken with intensity, can overpower a rote affirmation spoken without feeling. The law of the word demands that you become deliberate in your speech. Each word must be measured against the reality you wish to create. This is not repression, it is conscious creation. When you understand that your tongue is a scepter and your words are decrees, you begin to speak as one who governs their own kingdom. You refuse to plant anything in the soil of your mind that you would not gladly see take root and multiply. The 3 spiritual words at the heart of this teaching are the purest form of such a decree. They are simple, direct, and unambiguous. When spoken with conviction, they bypass the tangle of contradictory beliefs and impress themselves directly upon the subconscious. Through them, you speak not as a beggar, but as a creator, not as one wishing for wealth, but as one claiming what already exists in the invisible. In this way, your words become flesh not someday, but as swiftly as the law of mind allows. Affirmation to carry forward. I guard my tongue as I guard my life, for my words are seeds that shape my world. The law of acceptance is the silent partner to the law of the word, for no spoken decree can bear fruit unless it is received inwardly as truth. The subconscious does not create simply because you speak. It creates because you accept what you speak as real, present, and inevitable. Acceptance is the inner yes that seals the instruction, much like a signature on a binding agreement. Without it, words remain as unplanted seed sound and vibration without roots, destined to drift away on the wind. To accept is to embody the feeling that the thing desired is already yours. This is why Jesus spoke in the present tense when teaching about prayer. What things soever ye desire, when ye pray, believe that ye receive them, and ye shall have them. Note the order: believe you receive, and then you shall have. Most reverse the process, waiting to see the manifestation before granting themselves the feeling of having received it. But the law of mind is not activated by waiting. It is activated by believing now. The subconscious accepts the state you dwell in most consistently, and when that state is one of already having, it goes to work aligning circumstances to match. Many fail in their affirmations, not because they lack discipline, but because they treat their statements as distant wishes rather than present realities. They say, "I will be wealthy someday," which the subconscious faithfully translates into "not now." And because "not now" is the dominant instruction, "not now" becomes the ongoing condition of their lives. Acceptance requires you to remove the gap between desire and fulfillment in your inner world. It is a refusal to speak or think of your good as apart from you, delayed or conditional. Imagine a gift offered to you by someone you trust completely. You do not doubt its authenticity. You do not ask whether it is really for you. You reach out, take it in your hands, and say thank you. That is acceptance. It is an unhesitating embrace of what is given, without waiting for further proof. When you accept divine wealth in the same way, without suspicion, without delay, you signal to the subconscious that the matter is settled. And once the subconscious holds it as settled, the outer conditions begin to rearrange themselves accordingly. The three spiritual words you are about to learn are a direct invocation of this law. They contain within them both the decree and the acceptance. When spoken, they not only declare wealth, they embody the consciousness of already possessing it. This is why they work so swiftly. They leave no space for delay, no room for the subconscious to file the request under future. They pull the experience into the now, where the only real creation can take place. Acceptance is not passive resignation. It is active agreement with the truth of your being. It is standing in the reality of abundance, even when the outer evidence has yet to catch up, and knowing that by doing so, you hasten its arrival. When you master acceptance, you will find that wealth begins to appear in forms you could not have predicted, because the law is free to work through any and all channels without resistance. Affirmation to carry forward. I accept divine wealth now without question or delay, and my life reflects my acceptance. Why 3 words? Why not 4 or 6 or a dozen? The simplicity of 3 is not accidental. It is woven into the very fabric of creation and spiritual law. Throughout Scripture, throughout sacred architecture, throughout the mystical traditions of every culture, the number 3 appears as a symbol of wholeness, completion, and divine authority. In the Christian tradition, the Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit expresses the fullness of God's nature in 3 aspects. In the language of manifestation, 3 represents the movement from idea to word to form. It is the number of agreement, the point at which heaven and earth meet and produce results in the material world. In the realm of the subconscious mind, the power of 3 lies in its balance. One word may be too narrow, easily swayed by conflicting thoughts. 2 may leave you in duality, with the possibility of inner conflict. But 3 creates stability, a tripod of meaning that stands firm even under the weight of doubt. It is why in rhetoric great truths are often spoken in 3s. Ask, and it shall be given you. Seek, and ye shall find. Knock, and it shall be opened unto you. Each phrase reinforces the others, creating a rhythm the mind remembers and the subconscious receives as authority. When you speak a phrase of 3 words, you are engaging the subconscious in a complete circuit. The first word opens the channel, the second directs the flow, and the third seals the instruction in the present moment. The 3 words you are about to learn follow this exact pattern. They are not random. Each is placed in perfect sequence to address the 3 essential elements of manifestation: identity, action, and timing. The first word declares who you are in relation to the infinite. The second word affirms the act of possession. The third fixes the manifestation in the eternal now, leaving no gap for delay. This triadic form also resonates deeply in the body's energy system. Spoken aloud, the 3 words carry a natural cadence, a rise and fall that calms the nervous system and focuses the mind. Whispered in stillness, they act like a tuning fork, aligning your mental, emotional, and spiritual vibrations into harmony. And because the subconscious is especially responsive to rhythm and repetition, a phrase of 3 words can be impressed more quickly and more deeply than a longer, more complicated statement. Even in the physical world, 3 governs stability and strength. A stool with 3 legs will stand firmly on uneven ground, while one with 4 may wobble. Likewise, a decree of 3 words will hold its power even when the circumstances of life are shifting beneath your feet. This is why, when you speak them with conviction, the 3 words you will soon hold in your heart will remain steady, anchoring you in the truth of abundance regardless of what the outer world appears to be saying. When you understand the divine logic of 3, you see that this teaching is not about clever phrasing or verbal tricks. It is about aligning yourself with a universal pattern that has been at work since the beginning of time. And when you step into that pattern consciously, you find that it carries you effortlessly toward your good. Affirmation to carry forward. I speak the divine pattern of 3, and my words stand as unshakable truth in my life. We have arrived at the threshold, the point of anticipation where the heart beats a little faster because it knows something precious is about to be placed in its keeping. But before I speak the 3 spiritual words aloud, it is essential that we understand the reverence with which they must be approached. These are not ordinary words to be repeated absent-mindedly, sandwiched between idle thoughts and passing complaints. They are a keyon cut precisely to fit the lock of your subconscious mind. And just as a key must be turned with deliberate intent to open a door, so these words must be spoken with awareness, purpose, and an inner stillness that knows they carry the authority of divine law. When I first began teaching this method, I noticed a remarkable pattern. Those who took the time to prepare their minds, clearing away the clutter of doubt, quieting the inner chatter, centering themselves in a state of expectancy, saw results in days, sometimes hours. Those who rushed past preparation, treating the words like a magic trick, found them to be only as effective as their level of belief allowed. The difference was not in the words themselves, but in the way they were received. It is not the seed alone that brings the harvest, it is the soil into which it is sown. You must approach this moment as though you were stepping into a sacred chamber. Imagine a great golden door before you, gleaming in the light of a sun that never sets. Behind it lies a treasure room filled with every form of wealth you could ever need. Opportunities, resources, inspired ideas, connections, favor, and supply in forms beyond your current imagining. The door is locked, not because the giver wishes to keep you out, but because the key must be turned from within. The 3 words you are about to receive are that key, and when you speak them with faith, you will feel the tumblers click into place and the door begin to swing open. The reason I do not reveal them too soon is because the mind needs a certain ripening, a readiness that comes from having explored the illusions of scarcity, having recognized the inner blocks, having seen the immutable laws of abundance, word, and acceptance. Without this readiness, the words might seem too simple, too plain to carry such power. But when the ground is prepared, simplicity becomes their strength. You will not doubt them because they will ring in you like something you have always known but forgotten until now. So take a deep breath, let the air fill your lungs, and release it slowly, as though you are exhaling every last trace of hesitation. Say within yourself, I am ready. Feel those words settle in your chest, a quiet yes that signals to your subconscious that the moment has come. And in the stillness that follows, Prepare to hear and receive the three spiritual words that, when spoken with conviction and repeated with joy, will begin at once to reprogram your mind for wealth and open the channels of divine supply in your life. Affirmation to carry forward. I am ready to receive the key, and I will guard and use it with faith and gratitude. The first word is the most personal, the most powerful, and the most sacred, I. With this single syllable, you step into the center of creation, for it is the declaration of your own being. In every language and in every age, I has stood as the affirmation of identity. It is not just a pronoun. He is the name you give to your consciousness, the point at which your awareness meets existence. When Moses stood before the burning bush and asked the divine to reveal his name, the answer was, I am that I am. In those words lies the truth that every I spoken by a child of God carries the echo of the infinite. I am. To say I is to claim authorship of your experience. It is the moment when you stop pointing to others, to fate, or to chance as the source of your condition, and you acknowledge the seat of power within. This is why it must be the first word of the three. It turns the key in the lock of self-recognition. Without I, there's no claim, no ownership, no personal connection to the spiritual law that will unfold the rest. When you say I in the context of a spiritual decree, you are not speaking of the small, fearful self that has been battered by years of doubt or struggle. You are speaking from the higher self, the divine image and likeness in which you were created. You are invoking the eternal identity that cannot be diminished by circumstance, the self that was rich in spirit before it ever held a coin in its hand. In this sense, I is not a petition, it is a coronation. You place the crown upon your own head and take your place in the royal household of divine abundance. Many people stumble at the very threshold of manifestation because they speak powerful words without first anchoring them in the authority of I. They talk about wealth as something out there, disconnected from their own being, as if it were a gift given randomly or earned through appeasement. But when you begin with I, you place yourself directly in the flow. You acknowledge that the creative process begins within you and moves outward. You align yourself with the truth that your consciousness is the cause and the world you see is the effect. Speak I with a slow, steady breath, letting it vibrate through your chest. Feel the weight of it, the authority in it, the ancient truth it carries. In that single syllable, you stand in the same lineage as the prophets, mystics, and teachers who understood that the kingdom of God is within, and that to claim it, you must first declare your place in it. This first word prepares the subconscious to listen, to receive, and to act upon the command that follows, because it knows the command is being issued by the rightful authority, you. Affirmation to carry forward. I am the center of my creation, the point where God's infinite abundance flows into form. The second word is the bridge between knowing who you are and stepping into the experience of what is already yours. Receive. This is the word that changes the posture of your soul from reaching to welcoming, from striving to allowing. To receive is not to beg, plead, or bargain it. It's to open the hands of your heart and let the abundance that has always been present flow into your experience without obstruction. The moment you say receive, you dismantle the walls built by unworthiness, fear, and doubt, and you give the subconscious a direct instruction. This is mine now. I accept it fully. Spiritually, receiving is not passive. It is an act of consent to the law of supply. The scripture tells us, ask, and it shall be given you. Seek, and ye shall find. Knock, and it shall be opened unto you. But far too many stop at the asking, forgetting that the second half of the process is the inner acceptance, the readiness to take what is offered. The universe can present you with opportunity after opportunity, yet if your inner self has not said yes, those opportunities will pass you by as though invisible. Receive is that, yes, it is the unspoken agreement that says, I am willing to let my life be filled with the good that is mine by divine right. In the realm of the subconscious, receive carries a vibration entirely different from get or take. To get implies chasing, struggling, competing for limited resources. To take often suggests force or grasping, rooted in the belief that there may not be enough to go around. But to receive is to stand in faith that the source of your wealth is infinite, that there is no need to hoard or clutch because the supply is unending. It is to open the door to the divine vault and allow what belongs to you to come forth freely, joyfully, and in perfect order. When you speak, receive after I, you are telling the subconscious that you are not only the rightful heir to divine abundance, but that you are willing to let it in. This is where so many falter, not because the supply is lacking, but because they have unconsciously refused to accept it. They may carry old guilt that whispers, I don't deserve this. They may harbor a fear that abundance will change them or cost them something they value, but receive overrides those whispers and replaces them with a command the subconscious cannot ignore. Open the gates. Practice saying this word slowly, with an upward lift in your voice, as if you are opening a window to the morning sun. Feel the release of tension in your body as you speak it, the shift from closed to open, from doubt to welcome. Imagine that with each breath you are drawing in streams of golden light that carries within it the very substance of wealth, health, ideas, and opportunities, and that each time you exhale, you make more space for the flow to continue. Receive is the turning point in the three-word decree. It transforms the statement from an abstract truth about who you are into a lived experience of abundance pouring into your life. It is the moment the seed meets the soil, the key turns in the lock, the door swings wide. Without it, I remains only a declaration. With it, I becomes the opening through which all things are made possible. Affirmation to carry forward. I receive the fullness of God's abundance now, and I welcome it into every part of my life. The third word is the seal, the final stroke that completes the circuit of power and fixes your declaration in the only time that creation truly knows the eternal now. Without this word, your decree can drift into the vague future, always just out of reach, like the horizon that recedes as you walk toward it. The subconscious does not work in the currency of someday. It takes its instructions from the state you hold in the present moment. When you say now, you collapse the distance between desire and fulfillment, telling your inner mind that the thing spoken of exists already and must be experienced without delay. In the spiritual realm, now is not merely a point on the clock. It is the timeless present in which God acts. When Moses asked the divine for a name, the answer was not I will be, nor I was, but I am. That is the language of creation. To place now at the end of your decree is to align yourself with the Creator's own tense, the perpetual present, in which all things are already accomplished. This is why the Master Teacher said, all things whatsoever ye pray and ask for, believe that ye have received them, and ye shall have them. Believe that you have past tense, but hold that belief in the living present. The human mind, conditioned by time, is tempted to push fulfillment forward. I will be rich when, I will feel free after. But such thinking teaches the subconscious to keep the result perpetually pending. The effect is like a storehouse of blessings sitting just beyond your reach, because the order was filed for a delivery date that never arrives. Now changes the date stamp to immediate release. It signals that the condition for receiving is already met, that nothing stands in the way, that the door is already open and the gift is already in your hands. When you speak now after I receive, you are issuing a spiritual command that bridges the invisible and the visible. You are telling your subconscious, do not wait, do not delay. This is already mine, and I live in it at this very moment. The subconscious, bound by its nature to obey the clearest and most consistent instructions, will begin arranging your thoughts, your actions, your encounters, and even your environment to reflect that this is so. And because the law of mind always expresses the dominant state, each repetition of now deepens the sense of immediacy until it becomes second nature to think, feel, and act from the place of already having. Speak now with finality, letting it land like the closing of a seal on a royal decree. Feel the certainty in it, the sense that no further argument is needed, no further waiting is required. In that instant, you have moved from hoping for wealth to living in wealth, from aspiring to possessing. You have given your subconscious no choice but to accept the condition as real and to carry it out with precision. When the three words come together, I receive now, you will feel the completeness of the statement. Identity claimed, action taken, timing fixed. It is a formula the subconscious understands instantly and responds to without hesitation. And when spoken with the faith of one who knows their inheritance, it will open channels you did not know existed, delivering into your life the visible proof of what you have declared. Affirmation to carry forward. I receive now, and the abundance of God fills my life in this very moment. When the three words are assembled, I receive now, they form a decree of such precision and completeness that the subconscious has no room for doubt, delay, or reinterpretation. It is the spiritual equivalent of turning a key in a lock, opening the vault of infinite supply, and stepping inside as its rightful heir. The beauty of this phrase lies not only in its simplicity, but in its directness. Each word performs its essential role, and together they create a closed loop of creation that begins and ends in the present moment. Think of this phrase as a divine equation. The first word, I, establishes identity, rooting you in the awareness of your own creative authority as a child of the infinite. The second word, receive, initiates the act of opening the channels of mind and heart to the flow that is always seeking to pour into your life. The third word, now, fixes the manifestation in the present, erasing any mental distance between you and the thing you desire. Remove any one of these components, and the circuit weakens. Keep them together, and you have a living formula for manifestation that can be applied to wealth, health, relationships, or any form of good you wish to experience. When you speak, I receive now, you are not begging the universe for permission, nor are you projecting your good into some distant, hopeful future. You are claiming what the Creator has already given. You are stepping into the flow of abundance that has been moving toward you since the beginning of time, but which may have been blocked by the walls of old beliefs. This statement tells the subconscious to tear down those walls, not tomorrow, not when you think you are ready enough, but immediately. And because the subconscious cannot distinguish between reality and a vividly accepted belief, it begins to reorganize your inner and outer world to match the truth you have spoken. The first time you say these words with full awareness, you may feel a subtle shift like a door opening in the quiet recesses of your mind. With repetition, that shift deepens into a tangible sense of possession, as though what you once longed for is already here, simply awaiting your recognition. And soon enough, the outer evidence will arrive, a conversation that leads to an unexpected opportunity, a bill paid in full through unforeseen means, a profitable idea dropping into your mind fully formed. These are not coincidences. They are the natural results of a new command impressed upon the law of your being. It is important to speak I receive now slowly, with presence, allowing the resonance of each word to sink in. You might whisper it as you rise in the morning, speak it aloud with confidence during the day, and murmur it gently before sleep, letting it echo in your mind as you drift into the subconscious realm where all creation begins. In time, the phrase will rise within you spontaneously, without prompting, becoming the unshakable undercurrent of your consciousness. And when that happens, you will have crossed the threshold not from poverty to wealth alone, but from separation to unity with the infinite storehouse of God. Affirmation to carry forward. I receive now identity, allowance, and immediacy are one within me, and wealth flows without end. Why does this three-word decree work with such startling precision? The answer lies in the perfect alignment it creates between spiritual law, psychological principle, and the innate mechanics of the subconscious mind. Spiritually, I receive now affirms the eternal truth that supply is already complete in God, and that man's role is not to manufacture abundance, but to accept it. This aligns with the divine pattern. The Creator provides, the creation receives. Psychologically, the statement bypasses the limiting filters of the conscious mind by being short, specific, and emotionally charged. It leaves no space for if, when, or how, and thus prevents the mind from watering down its potency with doubt or delay. From the standpoint of the subconscious, these words are a direct command, free of contradictions. The subconscious does not debate, it does not reason, it accepts. When you say I, the subconscious immediately identifies with the statement as a self-definition. When you add receive, you trigger the mind's natural orientation toward completion. It begins scanning for ways to fulfill the act you have declared. And when you close with now, you switch the mind into the present tense, the only time frame in which it can truly operate. This combination delivers a singular, unified message. This is already mine, and I am experiencing it. On a deeper level, this decree resonates because it harmonizes with the universal law of cause and effect. Your inner state, the beliefs you hold, the emotions you feel, the truths you accept are the cause. The conditions and experiences of your outer world are the effect. Most people try to change the effect while leaving the cause untouched, and so they loop endlessly between short-lived gains and repeated losses. I receive now flips that order. It changes the cause instantly by installing a new dominant state in the subconscious, which then must produce a matching outer reality. You may have heard of affirmations before, perhaps even used them with mixed results. The difference here is not just in the brevity of the phrase, but in its completeness and its immediacy. Many affirmations are like planting seeds without water or light. They express a desire, but do not carry the power to bring it into the now. I receive now as both the seed and the water, both the planting and the harvest. It engages the whole mind, conscious and subconscious, in the same moment, creating a unified vibration that the law of mind cannot resist. When you combine this decree with consistent, feeling-filled repetition, you create a momentum that grows with each passing day. The subconscious begins to see this state as your new normal, and once it does, it will reject anything in your experience that does not match it. Opportunities, ideas, and resources that were invisible to you before will begin to stand out as though illuminated by a spotlight. The world itself will seem to reorganize in your favor, not because the world has changed, but because you have. Affirmation to carry forward. The law of my mind is faithful. I declare I receive now, and my world reflects it without delay. Let me share with you the first of 3 testimonies that illustrate how swiftly and powerfully this decree can work when applied with sincerity and consistency. The story of the merchant's turnaround. Thomas was a seasoned shop owner whose business had served his community for over 2 decades. In the early years, prosperity seemed to flow with ease. Customers filled the aisles, and his days were marked by the quiet satisfaction of steady growth. But over time, competition increased, costs rose, and his once thriving store slipped into a slow but steady decline. He tried everything he knew in the outer world: sales promotions, advertising campaigns, rearranging his store layout, but nothing produced more than a short-lived bump. His savings dwindled, debts mounted, and the quiet satisfaction he had once known was replaced by a gnawing dread that he might have to close the doors for good. When Thomas came to me, he was carrying the weight of years of effort without reward. His language revealed the silent program running in his subconscious. Phrases like, "These are hard times," and "You can't fight the big chains," slipped into his conversation like background noise. He loved his work, but beneath it all was a resignation, a belief that his best days were behind him and that his future would be a slow retreat. I told him that no amount of marketing could succeed until the inner blueprint changed, and I gave him the 3 words, I receive now. His instructions were simple: say them upon waking, throughout the day whenever he felt fear or doubt, and before sleep, pairing them with the feeling of his shop alive with business once more. The first 2 days felt strange to him. He admitted that his mind wanted to wander back into worry, rehearsing the same old limitations. But he persisted, speaking the words as a steady, calm declaration, imagining with each repetition that customers were flowing into his store, transactions were being made, and the shelves were turning over rapidly. By the third day, he noticed a lightness in his mood, a subtle shift from dread to anticipation. On the fourth day, an old supplier who had stopped working with him due to his declining sales called unexpectedly, offering him favorable terms on a line of popular products that had previously been out of reach. The next day, a local influencer featured his shop in a social media post, without being asked, sending a surge of curious visitors through his doors. By the seventh day, his weekly revenue had more than doubled, not because of any grand external strategy, but because he had shifted the vibration of his inner world. He told me, "It felt like the tide turned all at once. I didn't push, I opened." And that is the essence of the decree. He stopped wrestling with the outer conditions and began commanding his inner reality with "I receive now." Thomas's turnaround is not an anomaly, is the natural result of aligning the inner cause with the desired outer effect. The moment you accept your abundance as present, the law of mind begins to draw into your life every element required to make it visible. You do not need to know which door will open. You need only to stand in the truth that the opening is already here. Affirmation to carry forward. As I declare, I receive now, doors open, channels flow, and my supply rushes to meet me. The second testimony comes from a woman named Clara, a single mother of two who had been carrying the heavy burden of financial survival for years. Clara worked 2 part-time jobs, neither of which offered security or benefits, and still found herself juggling overdue bills each month. She often described her life as running on empty, both in her bank account and in her own body. Her friends admired her resilience, but privately she felt trapped in a cycle she couldn't escape. A cycle where every extra dollar that came in seemed to be swallowed instantly by some new expense. When Clara first heard "I receive now," she admitted that her initial reaction was skepticism. "It sounds too simple," she told me. But simplicity was exactly what she needed, something she could hold on to in the midst of a chaotic schedule and constant demands. I instructed her to repeat the 3 words every morning before her feet touched the floor, to let them be her anchor during the storms of the day, and to close each night by pairing them with a vivid image of her life in financial ease, seeing herself paying bills with gratitude, filling her pantry without hesitation, and even setting aside money for the future. The first few days brought no visible change in her circumstances, but she noticed an immediate shift in her mood. Instead of waking with the familiar weight of dread, she began to feel a quiet expectancy, as though something was moving in her favor. On the 5th day, a friend she hadn't spoken to in years reached out, inviting her to apply for an administrative position at his company. It was full-time, with benefits, and paid more than both of her part-time jobs combined. She interviewed on the 7th day, and the moment she walked into the office, she said it felt like home. She was offered the position before the week was over. When she accepted, her mind flashed back to the dozens of times she had whispered, "I receive now," in her car between shifts, holding on to the feeling of relief and gratitude as if it were already real. Clara understood then that the words had not made the job appear, they had shifted her inner atmosphere so that she could finally see and step into the opportunities that had been circling her all along. Even more remarkable, within her first month in the new role, she received an unexpected bonus after helping resolve a major scheduling problem at the office. Instead of using the extra money to catch up as she would have in the past, she followed her newfound sense of wealth consciousness and placed part of it in saving her first ever emergency fund. She told me later, "It feels like I've stepped out of survival mode into a life where there's room to breathe." Clara's story proves that "I receive now" does not depend on the size of your current resources or the appearance of your circumstances. It works because it alters the cause, your inner state, which inevitably alters the effect. Once you are living in the vibration of receiving, you magnetize the situations, people, and ideas that match it. Affirmation to carry forward. I live in the vibration of receiving, and my life opens to supply from every direction. The third testimony comes from Aaron, a gifted painter whose art brimmed with emotion and beauty, yet who struggled to find buyers for his work. For years, Aaron lived in a cramped studio apartment surrounded by canvases he considered his children, each one painted with care but destined to lean against the wall, unseen and unsold. Though his friends praised his talent, he carried a private conviction that making a living from his art was a privilege granted only to a rare few, and that he was not among them. That belief became a silent barrier, keeping him in a loop of small local shows and the occasional modest sale, but never breaking through to the life of abundance and creative freedom he longed for. When Aaron was introduced to I Receive Now, he was intrigued but hesitant. "I've tried affirmations before," he confessed, "but it's like they bounce off me." I told him this phrase was different, that it wasn't about convincing himself of something far away, but about inhabiting the reality of receiving in the present moment. His instructions were clear. He was to say the words while standing before his latest painting each morning, imagining that it had just sold for a sum beyond his previous expectations, and to repeat them again at night, while envisioning himself shipping it off to a joyful collector. In the first week, nothing dramatic happened outwardly, but something inside him shifted. The heaviness he had felt when looking at his unsold work began to lift. The paintings no longer seemed like a silent rebuke, they felt like treasures waiting for their rightful owners. This change in perspective led him to take a step he had avoided for years. He applied to a well-regarded online art marketplace, something he had previously dismissed as out of his league. His application was accepted within days. Within 2 weeks, one of his larger works caught the attention of a buyer overseas who purchased it at a price that doubled his previous record sale. Over the following month, 3 more paintings found buyers through the same platform. Aaron told me, "It was like the world suddenly realized I was here, but I know it was me who realized it first." His use of I Receive Now had quietly dismantled the belief that abundance was for other people, and replaced it with the conviction that he was as worthy and capable as anyone. Interestingly, Aaron also noticed that his creative process changed. He began painting with a freer hand, less concerned about what would sell, and more focused on the joy of expression. That joy itself became magnetic, infusing his work with a vitality that drew in more interest. In his words, "I used to paint hoping for a buyer. Now I paint knowing the right buyer is already on their way." Aaron's breakthrough is a perfect example of how I Receive Now not only brings material results, but also transforms the spirit, restoring confidence and opening the channel to inspiration. The wealth it unlocks is not just measured in currency, but in the deep satisfaction of living one's purpose without the shadow of lack. Affirmation to carry forward. I receive now, and my gifts flow into the world in perfect timing and perfect abundance. When we examine these 3 testimonies together, the merchant, the single mother, and the artist, we begin to see a pattern that reveals the true nature of the decree's power. Though their outer situations were vastly different, the inner mechanics of their transformation were identical. Each of them began in a state of constriction, hemmed in by subconscious programs that defined the limits of what they could have. In Thomas, it was resignation and an invisible ceiling on his business. In Clara, it was the survival mindset that left no room for expansion. In Aaron, it was the belief that abundance belonged to a select few. All 3 were operating under inner laws they had never consciously chosen, but had nevertheless obeyed for years. The introduction of I Receive Now did not simply drop wealth into their laps. It rewrote the script that their subconscious minds had been following. The words bypassed years of accumulated resistance because they were short enough to avoid mental argument, complete enough to form a self-contained truth, and present enough to remove the illusion of delay. By repeating them, each individual began to inhabit a new identity: the merchant who expected sales, the mother who anticipated ease, the artist who knew his buyers were on the way. And because identity is the most powerful driver of human behavior, their outer actions began to align with their new inner state without strain or overthinking. Another common thread in their breakthroughs was the appearance of what the world calls unexpected opportunities. The supplier's call, the friend's job offer, the overseas buyer, each of these arose seemingly from nowhere. But in truth, such opportunities were always moving through the field of potential. They became visible and accessible only when the inner atmosphere changed. This is a critical point. Wealth is not something we create from nothing. It is something we align with, something we allow into form by matching its vibration within ourselves. I receive now is the switch that tunes us to that frequency. What also stands out is that none of them had to strain, hustle harder, or make radical changes in their external circumstances before the shift began. In fact, the shift began internally, and their new actions, Thomas reconnecting with suppliers, Clara attending the interview, Aaron applying to the online marketplace, were natural extensions of their revised self-image. The decree did not instruct them on which doors to knock on. It simply unlocked the sense that the right doors were already opening. This is why the decree works across circumstances, industries, and backgrounds. It does not depend on the specifics of the outer situation, but on the universality of the law of mind. When you change the cause, the effect must follow, no matter how unlikely it may seem from your current vantage point. And when you hold to I receive now with the calm certainty of someone stating a fact, you give the law no choice but to respond in kind. Affirmation to carry forward. The law of mind is impartial. As I declare, I receive now. It fulfills my word with precision and abundance. Now that you have seen the law in action through these testimonies, it is time to move from inspiration to application to take I receive. Now, from an idea you understand into a living practice that transforms your experience in 7 days. This is where the 7-day integration plan becomes your framework, your scaffolding for building the new inner structure that will sustain wealth consciousness long after the first wave of results has arrived. 7 days is not chosen at random. It mirrors the divine pattern of creation itself. In the Genesis account, God completed the work of bringing form out of formlessness in 6 days and sanctified the seventh. In the same way, you are to dedicate the next 7 days to consciously creating a new state of being, then resting in the assurance that the work is complete. The first, and perhaps most crucial element of this plan is the morning practice. The moments immediately after waking are sacred ground for the subconscious mind. In those first few minutes, your brain operates in the theta state, the same receptive frequency that characterizes deep meditation and the drowsy edge of sleep. This is when the veil between conscious thought and subconscious acceptance is at its thinnest. Most people squander this golden window by reaching for their phones, scanning news, or mentally rehearsing the day's worries. But you will do something entirely different. You will impress your decree upon your inner mind while it is most open to receiving it. Here's how it is done. The instant you become aware that you are waking, before you even open your eyes, take a deep, unhurried breath. On the inhale, silently affirm, I receive now. On the exhale, feel a wave of gratitude as if the abundance you desire has already arrived. Do this 3 times, letting the phrase and the feeling settle deeper with each repetition. Then, while still in bed, close your eyes again and spend a minute or two visualizing one specific scene that represents your wealth fulfilled, perhaps checking your account and seeing the number you desire. Perhaps standing in a home you have chosen, perhaps joyfully paying for something in full. Keep the scene simple, vivid, and anchored in the present moment. By beginning your day in this way, you set the tone for everything that follows. You are no longer approaching the world as someone in search of wealth. You are moving through the day as someone who has already received it. This subtle but profound shift colors your thoughts, your words, your decisions, and even the way you carry yourself. And because the subconscious is programmed through repetition, each morning you begin this way compounds the effect, making I receive now the default setting of your inner life. If you do nothing else in the plan, let this be the non-negotiable practice. Guard it fiercely. Make it a sacred appointment with yourself and with the infinite, a daily crowning of your consciousness with the truth of abundance. In time, you will find that the rest of the day begins to rearrange itself to match the vibration you establish in these first moments. Affirmation to carry forward. Each morning I awaken to I receive now, and my day unfolds in the flow of abundance. The second step in your 7-day integration plan is the midday wealth alignment, a deliberate pause in the middle of your day to reset your inner atmosphere and ensure that you remain tuned to the vibration of receiving. You see, the momentum you create in the morning is powerful, but as you move through the hours, the noise of the world can creep in conversations that drip with scarcity thinking, headlines designed to provoke fear, minor frustrations that try to pull you back into the old patterns of reaction. Without a conscious midday realignment, those subtle influences can erode the clarity you established upon waking. Midday is the perfect time to restore that clarity, because your mind is still alert, yet far enough into the day to have collected some emotional residue. The goal here is not to dwell on what has gone wrong, but to return swiftly to the truth. This practice need not take more than a few minutes, and you can do it anywhere at your desk, in your car, during a brief walk, even in the restroom if privacy is needed. What matters is your intent to step out of the current of outer circumstances and back into the steady flow of I receive now. Here's how it works. Find a comfortable position and take 3 slow, deep breaths, allowing your shoulders to relax and your attention to turn inward. On the first inhale, think the word I, letting it root you in your divine identity. On the exhale, release any tension or thought of limitation. On the second inhale, think receive, feeling your heart and mind open wide. On the exhale, release any lingering resistance. On the third inhale, think now, fixing your consciousness firmly in the present moment. On the exhale, imagine golden light flowing outward from you, touching everything in your world with increase. If possible, close your eyes during this process and bring to mind a quick snapshot image of your abundance, something that instantly evokes the feeling of having already received. It might be a smiling face as you give a gift, the sight of your bank account showing your desired balance, or the warm glow of security as all your needs are met. Lock onto that feeling and let it saturate your awareness for just a minute or two. This midday alignment serves 2 crucial purposes. It interrupts any unconscious drift into scarcity, and it compounds the subconscious programming by adding another layer of repetition and emotion to your decree. Each time you do it, you are reaffirming to your inner mind that I receive now is not a morning wish or an evening ritual. It is the living state of your being at all times. Over the course of the 7 days, you will begin to notice that this midday pause feels less like a chore and more like a refreshing drink of water in the desert. It will recharge your energy, refocus your intention, and subtly shift the rest of your afternoon so that you begin to see evidence of your decree in motion before the day is through. Affirmation to carry forward. In the midst of my day, I return to I receive now, and the flow of abundance is renewed within me. The third step in your 7-day integration plan is the evening visualization, a deliberate and richly sensory immersion into the reality you are creating. The moments before sleep are, like the moments upon waking, a gateway to the subconscious. In this drowsy twilight state, your mind becomes extraordinarily receptive, and the impressions you feed it will echo throughout the night, replaying in the deep workshop of your inner world. This is why the evening practice is not a mere repetition of the morning. It is an amplification, a sealing of the day's vibration, so that your decree continues working while you rest. To begin, set aside just 5 to 10 minutes before bed in a quiet, comfortable space. Turn off any harsh lighting and, if you can, remove distractions such as phones or televisions. This is your sacred time, the final imprint you will place on your subconscious before it takes over the night's work. Sit or lie down, close your eyes, and take 3 slow, deliberate breaths, allowing the weight of the day to melt from your body. Now, speak your decree, I receive now. Say it slowly, letting each word resonate through you. As you do, picture yourself in a specific scene that embodies your wealth already fulfilled. This is not the time for vague images. Be precise. If your desire is financial freedom, perhaps you see yourself logging into your bank account and smiling as you see the exact figure you've been intending. If your vision is a thriving business, perhaps you imagine yourself celebrating a record month of sales with your team. If it's a home you've longed for, See yourself walking through its rooms, feeling the texture of the walls, hearing the sound of your footsteps on the floor. Engage all your sense, hear the sounds, smell the scents, feel the textures, taste the joy of the moment. The more senses you involve, the more real the scene becomes to the subconscious. Most importantly, feel the emotion of having received. Let gratitude, joy, and a sense of completion swell within you until you can almost forget the gap between your physical reality and this inner vision. In that moment, your subconscious cannot tell the difference. It accepts what you are giving it as truth. Once the scene feels vivid and satisfying, let it loop a few times, like a short film playing in your mind. Keep your decree close, either repeating "I receive now" softly between loops or allowing the words to rest as a silent undercurrent beneath the imagery. As drowsiness deepens, release the scene gently, trusting that the seed has been planted for the night. You do not need to force it to work. The subconscious has already taken the instruction and will now set about arranging the circumstances for its fulfillment. Over the course of the 7 days, this evening practice will act as a multiplier for your results. Morning sets the tone, midday restores alignment, but evening sends your decree into the fertile darkness where growth is constant and unseen. Many people who commit to this practice find that they awaken with new ideas, sudden clarity, or even tangible opportunities waiting in their inbox, because the subconscious, once given a clear instruction, never sleeps. Affirmation to carry forward. As I close my eyes in peace, I receive now, and my wealth grows even in the stillness of the night. The fourth step in your 7-day integration plan is journaling the evidence, a practice that transforms subtle signs of progress into undeniable proof for your subconscious mind. One of the most overlooked aspects of manifestation work is the conscious acknowledgement of results as they appear, whether large or small. Most people fail to notice the early signals that their decree is already at work, and by overlooking them, they rob themselves of the faith-building momentum that comes from seeing cause and effect unfold before their eyes. Journaling the evidence is about training your perception to recognize the inflow of abundance in all its forms. This means you are not waiting for a single dramatic event to prove the decree works. You are documenting every opening, every opportunity, every unexpected ease that arises, knowing that these are the building blocks of your larger manifestation.
The act of recording them serves two purposes. It magnifies your awareness of the law in action, and it reinforces to your subconscious that "I receive now" is producing tangible results,
which in turn accelerates the process. Here's how to do it. Set aside a dedicated notebook or journal solely for this purpose. Each evening, ideally, right after your evening visualization, write down everything that occurred during the day that could be considered evidence of receiving. This could be a gift you didn't expect, a bill that was smaller than usual, a compliment on your work, a new contact that could lead to opportunity, or simply feeling a lightness and confidence you hadn't felt before. Nothing is too small to record, because the subconscious does not rank manifestations by size. It responds to recognition and repetition. Write in the present tense to anchor your entries in the energy of now. Instead of "I got a small refund today," write "I receive unexpected money with ease." Instead of "a friend recommended me for a job," write "I receive opportunities that align perfectly with my talents." This subtle linguistic shift further embeds the decree into your subconscious and keeps your vibration in harmony with receiving. As the days pass, you will begin to see patterns in your journal clusters of opportunities, increasing amounts of financial inflow, or recurring moments of support from unexpected places. Reading back over these entries will strengthen your faith, especially on days when progress feels slower. Your subconscious thrives on repetition and evidence, and the journal provides both in a concentrated form. By the end of the 7 days, your journal of evidence will be more than a record. It will be a mirror reflecting your transformation. You will see in your own handwriting The proof that I receive now is not merely a phrase, but a living law at work in your life. And because what is recognized tends to multiply, this habit can become one of the most potent accelerators of wealth consciousness you will ever adopt. Affirmation to carry forward. Each day I witness and record the signs of my abundance, and my receiving multiplies. The fifth and final step of your 7-day integration plan is the final nightly declaration, the sacred seal you place upon your day before surrendering to the restorative embrace of sleep. This practice is not simply a repetition of your decree. It is the closing act of conscious creation, the moment where you hand your desire over to the infinite intelligence of your subconscious, knowing that it will continue to work on your behalf throughout the night. Where the evening visualization immerses you in the sensory and emotional reality of your wealth, the final nightly declaration is a direct, unwavering command that affirms the work is complete. To perform this step, position yourself comfortably in bed with the lights low or off. Take a few slow, deep breaths to quiet the body and still the mind. Then, speak your decree. I receive knowing, a tone that carries both gentleness and authority. It is not shouted or forced. It is delivered with the calm confidence of one who knows they are stating a fact, not a wish. Between each repetition, pause and feel the words settle into the depths of your being like stones sinking to the bottom of a clear lake. As you say the words, imagine them moving beyond the boundaries of your conscious thought, descending into the limitless workshop of your subconscious. See them glowing there, a simple yet powerful instruction surrounded by infinite creative potential. Know that from this place the decree is being acted upon instantly, weaving itself into circumstances, aligning people and opportunities, dissolving obstacles before they even appear. This declaration is your way of releasing control, of stepping back from the temptation to figure out how your wealth will arrive. It is an act of trust in the law that what is impressed upon the subconscious with feeling and repetition must be expressed in the outer world. You are not trying to make something happen. You are affirming that it is already happening here and now. This trust is essential, for the subconscious cannot work freely while the conscious mind clutches at the process in anxiety. End this practice with a simple gesture of closure, perhaps placing your hand over your heart, or exhaling fully and letting the body sink deeper into rest. In your mind, silently repeat, "It is done." This phrase is not a replacement for your decree, but a final flourish that tells your entire being to enter into the Sabbath rest of creation, where the work is finished and the results are inevitable. As you drift into sleep, the decree will continue to vibrate within you, and the subconscious, untiring and unquestioning, will spend the hours ahead assembling the outer proof. By morning, you may notice subtle shifts in your mood, new ideas rising to the surface, or opportunities presenting themselves without strain. Over the course of the 7 days, this nightly seal will become a deeply ingrained habit, a way of ensuring that every night becomes a partner in your manifestation. Affirmation to carry forward. As I declare, I receive now before sleep, the law of mind moves in perfect order, and my wealth flows without ceasing. When the 7 days are complete, you will have done far more than speak a phrase. You will have reconditioned the very fabric of your consciousness. But it is here, at the conclusion, that an important choice presents itself. Will you allow the momentum you have built to fade, or will you sustain and expand it so that I receive now becomes the permanent climate of your life? The truth is, 7 days is enough to create a powerful shift, but the law of mind works best when its instruction becomes a habitual state rather than a temporary exercise. The purpose of this stage after the 7 days is to anchor your new wealth consciousness so firmly that it continues to generate increase without interruption. The first key to sustaining this momentum is to keep the practice alive, even if you adjust its form. You may no longer need the same intensity of morning, midday, and evening rituals, but the decree itself should remain your constant companion. That I receive now be the first thought that greets you in the morning and the last that rests on your lips at night. This constancy ensures that the subconscious remains saturated with the state of receiving, leaving no room for the old patterns to creep back in unnoticed. Next, expand your definition of wealth beyond the financial. Recognize that the same decree can open the flow of health, love, creative inspiration, peace of mind, and any other form of good that is part of your divine inheritance. When you see I receive now as a universal key, you will naturally use it in every area of life, and each demonstration of its power will reinforce your faith in the law. This creates a self-sustaining cycle. Your results build your belief, and your belief multiplies your results. It is also essential to remain vigilant about the words you speak and the thoughts you entertain. After the 7 days, you will likely find that you are more sensitive to scarcity talk both from yourself and from others. Guard this sensitivity. It is not a burden. It is a sign that your inner atmosphere has changed. When you notice such talk, do not engage with it or attempt to argue against it. Instead, quietly reaffirm your decree and return to the truth you have installed. I receive now. In this way, you keep your inner channels clear, even in the presence of contradictory outer conditions. Finally, practice gratitude daily, not just for the wealth you see, but for the wealth that is still in the unseen, knowing it is already on its way. Gratitude is the companion of receiving. It is the emotional proof that you have accepted your good. Even the smallest acknowledgement of abundance will multiply its presence in your life, and the more you give thanks, the more you will find to give thanks for. By carrying forward the essence of the 7-day plan into your ongoing life, you ensure that the transformation you have experienced is not a passing high, but a permanent elevation. The decree will no longer feel like a practice. It will feel like the natural language of your soul. And in that state, the law of mind will continue to work in your favor without ceasing, bringing into form the endless expressions of divine wealth that are already yours. Affirmation to carry forward. I receive now as the air I breathe, the truth I live, and the law that governs my ever-expanding good. The final dimension of this work is community and circulation, for wealth to remain vibrant and ever-increasing must be kept in motion. Just as a river grows stagnant when its flow is blocked, so too does abundance lose its vitality when it is hoarded, feared, or withheld from the channels through which it is meant to pass. You have spent 7 days opening yourself to receive, but the law of circulation reminds us that receiving and giving are not separate acts. They are two sides of the same current. To give from a place of joy and faith is to affirm that your supply is endless, and in doing so you create a vacuum that the universe rushes to fill. This giving need not always be financial, though financial giving is a potent demonstration of trust in the law. It may take the form of time, attention, encouragement, or skill freely offered. The key is the spirit in which it is given, without strain, without calculation, without the lingering thought of loss. When you give while silently affirming, I receive now, you are sending a message to your subconscious that you are already full, already supplied, already in possession of more than enough to share. That message is a seed, and the harvest will inevitably return to you, often multiplied in ways you could not have predicted. In community, this circulation becomes a magnifier. Surround yourself with those who speak the language of abundance, who honor your decree, and reflect it back to you through their own demonstration of faith. When you share your experiences and hear the victories of others, your belief in the law is reinforced and the group's collective energy amplifies each member's manifestation. In the early Christian communities, they called this koinonia fellowship, in which each person's good was seen as a blessing to all, and the sharing of resources was a joyful expression of unity with the divine source. To make circulation an intentional part of your wealth practice, begin by setting aside a portion of what you receive, whether it is money, time, or resources, to give in a way that feels inspired. Let it be an act of celebration, not obligation. As you give, speak your decree inwardly or aloud, I receive now. This keeps you in the receiving mode even in the act of releasing, and it prevents the mind from slipping into the old habit of measuring or fearing loss. Over time, you will notice that giving becomes as natural and satisfying as receiving. The flow between you and the infinite storehouse will feel seamless, and the evidence of increase will appear not only in your own life but in the lives you touch. This is the ultimate expression of divine wealth, not merely to accumulate, but to circulate blessings so that the abundance of the kingdom is made visible on earth. Affirmation to carry forward. As I give, I receive now. My wealth flows outward in joy and returns to me in multiplied form. As we come to the close of this teaching, it is time for the final declaration of wealth consciousness, the moment where all that you have learned, practiced, and embodied over these days crystallizes into a single state of being. This is not merely a summary. It is a spiritual sealing, a conscious decision to live henceforth as one who knows not hopes, not wishes, but knows that they are in unbroken union with the source of all wealth. In making this declaration, you are not just ending a 7-day journey, you are beginning a lifetime of walking in the flow of divine abundance. To anchor this final state, find a place where you will not be disturbed, a setting that feels both peaceful and expansive. Stand or sit with your spine straight, and take a few deep breaths. Each inhale drawing in the sense of infinite supply, each exhale releasing every trace of scarcity from your mind and body. Then speak your decree, I receive now 3 times, slowly, with the full awareness that you are not commanding something to come to you from a distance, but affirming that it is already here, woven into the very fabric of your existence. After the 3rd repetition, close your eyes and let your mind drift over the tapestry of proof that is unfolded in your life, whether in the form of tangible gains, subtle shifts in mood, unexpected opportunities, or new connections. Let gratitude rise naturally, not as a forced exercise, but as the inevitable outpouring of recognition. You have seen the law at work, you have felt the shift in your consciousness, you have stood at the threshold of receiving and stepped boldly into it. Now, extend this awareness forward. See yourself moving through the days ahead with the same calm authority, the same readiness to receive in every moment. Picture conversations that lead to open doors, investments of time or money that yield increase, inspired ideas arriving at the perfect moment, and the quiet certainty that you never walk alone in the work of your abundance. With each scene, hear yourself saying, I receive now, not as a wish or a technique, but as the natural heartbeat of your life. To seal this declaration, speak aloud. I am one with the infinite supply of God. I live in the flow of abundance. I receive now, and my wealth is ever expanding. Let the words settle into you like roots going deep into fertile soil, ensuring that this state cannot be shaken by outer conditions. From this moment forward, carry the decree as a constant undercurrent in your awareness. Let it color your speech, guide your decisions, and shape your expectations. In doing so, you will not only continue to see wealth manifest in your own life, you will become a living demonstration of what is possible for anyone willing to align their consciousness with the eternal truth of supply. And perhaps most importantly, you will become a source of inspiration, a reminder to others that divine abundance is not a privilege for the few, but an inheritance for all who are willing to claim it. Affirmation to carry forward. I am one with the infinite supply, and I receive now as the unshakable truth of my life. Before we close, I want to leave you with a 21-day wealth covenant, an invitation to deepen the roots of this teaching until I receive now is no longer just a practice, but the very language of your subconscious. 7 days are powerful enough to spark visible change, but 21 days, the length of time it takes for the mind to establish a new pattern, will make this decree a permanent fixture in your consciousness. This covenant is more than a commitment of time. It is a sacred agreement between you, your subconscious, and the infinite source of your supply. Here is how it works. For the next 21 days, you will speak, I receive now, with feeling and awareness at least 3 times a day, morning upon waking, midday as a conscious alignment, and evening before sleep. You will pair it with at least 1 brief visualization each day, and you will continue to journal every sign of increase, no matter how small. This is not a rigid ritual, but a living conversation between you and the law of mind, a steady rhythm of declaration, reception, and recognition. To enter into this covenant, I invite you to make a ceremonial beginning. Write out the words I receive now in your own hand at the top of a fresh page in your journal. Beneath them, write, For the next 21 days, I agree to live as one who receives now in all areas of my life. I agree to speak my decree with faith, to welcome my good without delay, and to circulate my abundance with joy. Sign and date it, and if you wish, read it aloud as your first act of the covenant. As you move through the days, expect the law to respond in ways both subtle and dramatic. You may receive sudden financial inflow, or you may find that new opportunities appear where there seem to be none. You may feel a growing ease in your dealings, a release from old anxieties, or a steady stream of inspired ideas. All of these are evidence that the decree has taken root, and as you record them, you are not only strengthening your faith, you are magnifying the flow. By the 21st day, I receive now will no longer feel like something you are practicing. It will feel like something you are. The words will arise naturally in moments of decision, in conversations, even in quiet walks or idle thoughts. And when they do, they will carry the full authority of a truth that your subconscious has accepted without reservation. At that point, you will have crossed the line from hoping for wealth to living in the consciousness of wealth, and the law will continue to fulfill that state without end. To seal this covenant in your awareness, speak aloud. For the next 21 days and beyond, I receive now. The flow of divine supply is unbroken, and my life is a testimony to the abundance of God. Affirmation to carry forward. I receive now for 21 days and all the days that follow, and my wealth is without limit. As you step fully into this covenant, I invite you to hold in your mind the vision of yourself as a living demonstration of divine wealth. This is the final layer of our work together, not merely to speak the words, not merely to witness their results in your own life, but to embody them so completely that your very presence becomes an unspoken declaration. I receive now. When this truth is written so deeply in your subconscious that it radiates through your expressions, your choices, and your interactions, you will find that you no longer need to convince anyone of the law's reality. They will see it in you, and they will be moved to inquire. This is where your influence expands beyond your own experience. Every time you model ease instead of anxiety, generosity instead of grasping, gratitude instead of complaint, you are silently teaching others the vibration of receiving. You will discover that people are drawn to you without always knowing why. Your calm certainty in the abundance of life will act as a lighthouse to those still navigating the fog of scarcity thinking. When they ask, you can share your 3 words, not as a trick or a gimmick, but as a sacred key that has opened the storehouse for you and can do the same for them. This embodiment is also the surest way to sustain and expand your own flow. The law of circulation operates on more than physical exchange. It moves through attention, through intention, through the energetic imprint you leave on every situation. When you walk into a room already anchored in I receive now, you shift the atmosphere. Opportunities seem to cluster around you. Conversations bend toward possibility. Resources find their way to your hands because you are a safe, open channel for their movement. One of the profound shifts you will notice in this stage is that the distinction between practice and life dissolves. You are no longer setting aside time to step into wealth consciousness. You are living from it in every moment. Whether you are speaking to a client, making a purchase, offering your help to a friend, or simply enjoying a quiet moment alone, the undercurrent remains. I receive now. And because your subconscious has fully accepted this as your identity, it will continually arrange your circumstances to mirror that state. It is here the divine wealth moves from being an experience you occasionally visit to a home you permanently inhabit. The more you live as this embodiment, the less you will feel the urge to question, to push, to hurry. You will know, without needing to remind yourself, that the flow is constant, that the supply is infinite, and that you are always in position to receive. And from this place, your life will not only prosper, it will inspire. Affirmation to carry forward. I am the embodiment of I receive now. My life is the visible proof of God's endless supply. Now, let us bring this journey to its completion with the closing benediction of wealth, a spoken blessing designed to weave together every truth you have received, every shift you have experienced, and every channel you have opened during our time together. A benediction is more than a farewell. It is an energetic sending forth, a consecration of your path from this point forward. It is the final brushstroke on the canvas of your new identity. Ensuring that I receive now remains not only a phrase you speak, but the perpetual current in which you live. Before you speak it, take a quiet moment to reflect. Look back over the ground. You have covered the illusions of scarcity you have dissolved. The laws of abundance, word, and acceptance you have mastered. The testimonies that have shown you what is possible, and the practices you have made your own. Feel the continuity of this work in your body, as if the threads of each lesson have been woven together into a robe of light that now clothes your consciousness. You are not who you were when you began. You are a receiver by nature, a living instrument of the law of increase. Now, with that awareness, speak the benediction aloud, slowly and with intention. I am one with the infinite supply of God. I receive now every form of wealth that serves my highest good. I am open, I am ready, and I am grateful. The flow is constant, the source is endless, and my receiving knows no limit. From this moment forward, I walk in abundance, I think in abundance, I speak in abundance, and I live in abundance. It is done. It is established. It is now. Let the words settle into you, not as something you hope for, but as something you have claimed beyond all doubt. Imagine them radiating outward from your heart into your surroundings, blessing every aspect of your life, your work, your relationships, your finances, your health, your home. See the ripple extend beyond you, touching the lives of those you encounter, inspiring them to step into their own state of receiving. The benediction is your final act of alignment in this teaching, but it is also the first act of your life lived fully in the awareness of divine wealth. You carry it with you into every conversation, every transaction, every quiet moment of gratitude. And as you do, the law of mind will continue to unfold its perfect work, bringing into visible form the abundance that has always been yours. Go forward then, not as one who is learning to receive, but as one who has already received and continues to receive without end. For the source within you is infinite, and the channel you have opened can never close again. Affirmation to carry forward. I receive now, and I live in the unending benediction of divine abundance. Before we part, I leave you with a charge to share the key. For the law of circulation applies not only to money and resources, but also to spiritual truth. What you have received here is a seed of immeasurable value, 3 words that have the power to rewrite destinies, dissolve years of limitation, and open channels that have been closed for generations. The final act in sealing your wealth consciousness is to pass this seed along, not indiscriminately, but with the discernment and love of one who understands its sacred nature. When you share I receive now with another, you are not merely giving them a technique. You are inviting them into a shift of identity, a reintroduction to their own divine inheritance. And just as your own practice has been magnified by hearing the testimonies of others, your faith will deepen as you witness this decree working in the lives of those you teach. The law of mind responds to teaching with the same generosity it responds to giving. The more you pour out, the more you will find yourself replenished. But let your sharing be done in the spirit of empowerment, not persuasion. You do not need to convince anyone of the truth. The law requires no defense. Instead, embody the results so fully that your life itself becomes the evidence. When people ask you why you carry such peace, why opportunities seem to flow toward you, why you move through life with such certainty, then share the 3 words and share them as you receive them. With reverence, clarity, and the assurance that they work when spoken with belief. You may choose to gift the decree to a loved one going through hardship, a colleague seeking a breakthrough, or even a stranger whose spirit you feel is ready for more. When you do, remember to give them not just the words, but the understanding of how to use them morning, midday, and night with feeling and expectancy. Encourage them to journal their evidence, to visualize their receiving, to speak the words until they become the soundtrack of their being. In doing so, you are not only blessing their life, you are reinforcing your own alignment with the law of abundance. And here is the mystery you will soon witness. Each time you share the key, your own channels of receiving will open wider. The very act of giving this truth creates a demand upon the law to pour back into you, often in ways that surpass the blessing you have passed on. This is why the ancient wisdom says, freely you have received, freely give. In the circulation of truth, everyone increases. So let this be your charge. Guard the words as sacred, live them as reality, and share them as a gift. In this way, I receive now will not end with you. It will multiply through you, echoing into countless lives and generations, until the truth of divine supply becomes as natural to all as the air we breathe. Affirmation to carry forward. Freely I have received, freely I give, and my receiving is multiplied without end. As an epilogue of remembrance, let this final reflection serve as the thread that ties together every lesson, every practice, and every shift you have embraced in this journey. We began by confronting the illusion of scarcity, pulling back the curtain on the deeply rooted beliefs that had quietly shaped your experience of wealth. We moved from that diagnosis into the unveiling of spiritual law truths that have stood since the beginning of time, waiting for your recognition. From there, we unlocked the structure and meaning of the three words, I receive now, each one a key in its own right, and together a formula for instantaneous alignment with abundance. You have walked through the testimonies of others who dared to use this decree and witnessed how swiftly the law responded. You have been given the framework of the 7-day integration plan, a disciplined rhythm of morning, midday, and evening practices, journaling, and conscious declaration. You have understood the importance of sustaining your momentum beyond the 7 days, anchoring the decree into your identity until it is no longer something you practice but something you are. And you have been entrusted with the sacred duty of circulation, allowing the wealth you receive, both material and spiritual, to move outward in joy so that it multiplies for all. In this epilogue, I want you to see yourself as the author and the audience of your own testimony. There will come a day not long from now when you will look back and marvel at the gap between where you stood before these words and where you stand now. You will recall the moments when you chose to declare, I receive. Now, instead of sinking into doubt, when you paused at midday to realign instead of letting fear take root, when you recorded a small piece of evidence that later proved to be the doorway to something greater. These moments are not small. They are the foundation stones of a life built in partnership with the infinite supply. Carry this remembrance with humility and with certainty. Humility because the source of your wealth is larger than you, infinite and eternal, and certainty because you are inseparable from that source. Never again think of wealth as something you chase, for you have learned that it is something you allow. Never again speak of delay, for you know the only time the law responds to is now. Never again fear loss, for the source is endless, and your channel is open. Let this epilogue be your standing order to the subconscious. I receive now is my permanent state. The flow of divine wealth is constant. My giving and receiving are in perfect balance, and my life is the living proof of the law fulfilled. Take these words and write them somewhere. You can see them daily, not as a reminder to do the work, but as a celebration that the work is already done. Affirmation to carry forward. I receive now, I live in abundance, and this truth is the unshakable foundation of my life.